Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Mismapasion, and the Women's Champions League final is officially set with 4 now becoming 2. So let's get right into the thick of things to see who will be vying for the title in Lisbon. The first semi-final tie saw European heavyweights Olympique Lyonnais clashing heads with Arsenal, and both legs arguably delivered on the hype. The first leg took place on English tides, with the 8th-time winners in Lyon looking to set a marker against an Arsenal team who themselves were looking to make some more continental history to build on their reputation as the only English team to win the Champions League so far. It would be easier said than done though for the Gunners, as the French heavyweights were quick to establish their dominance in the game, with Arsenal finding next to no joy in the opposition half and struggling to contain the likes of Diani and Dumonet early on. The home team's failure to control the opposition would soon prove detrimental, as a venomous, albeit finesse shot from Diani would open the scoring for the game near the midway point of the first half. The second half would prove to be far more interesting for both sides, particularly for Arsenal, who seemed to have needed the concession to come alive in this tie, as the Gunners came out fighting and were honestly the better team, as they imposed themselves upon Lyon and kept them in their half and creating numerous scoring opportunities, especially from crosses that honestly should have been converted from the likes of Monham and Ford, but Lyon goalie Christine Endler stood firm to deny the Gunners at every opportunity up until she haphazardly gave away a penalty to give Arsenal a lifeline. The penalty itself was slotted away calmly and coolly by Mariona Caldente to bring Arsenal back into the fold, but they seemed to have enjoyed the moment a bit too much, as Lyon would soon recapture their lead with a solo charge from Dumournet that honestly could have been avoided had Arsenal's defense been switched on, because it was a really ludicrous goal to concede. It would ultimately end 2-1 in favor of Olympique Lyonnais, but both teams arguably had a lot of work to do in France, as there was still all to play for. The other first leg encounter was a mere repeat in terms of the teams and the location of the ties from last year, as Barcelona welcomed Chelsea in a clash of the respective league leaders of Spain and England in what is undeniably going to be a mouth-watering encounter. Atmospherically, this encounter already trumped last year's, as Barca fans were on it right from minute one, and I think it went some way to rattling the nerves of Chelsea here, as the Blues looked out of it early on, and the concession of a penalty again early on because of a handball would not help things much, but thankfully for the Blues, Hannah Hampton did well to save Putellas' effort from the spot. After a lengthy back and forth between the teams, it would be Barcelona who would get the privilege of scoring first after a silky through ball from Putellas would intersect with the run of Juva Pavo, who did what she does best and scored emphatically to score her 36th goal in her debut campaign for the Catalans. The energy and intensity of the first half continued into the second, and it would be substitute Claudia Pina who would light up the stadium once more as she tapped in from across from Ona Batier to give Barcelona a stranglehold on the tie. But much like Arsenal and Lyon, the celebrations from the home team caused them to take their eye off the ball, and they were punished as Sandy Baltimore would hand the Blues a belated lifeline with a rifling shot that caught out Katakoi completely to set up an interesting last 15 minutes. Predictably, both teams went at it, but the better team on the day was Barcelona, and they were just too good for Chelsea, as they would restore their 2-goal cushion after a domineering header from Arina Paredes. Thankfully, it would only be a week's worth of the second legs to commence, and what honestly would have been a better appetizer than the running back of Barcelona versus Chelsea, but this time of course at Stamford Bridge. As we all know, the home side had a mountain of a 3-goal deficit to overcome, which Barcelona were never going to give up willingly, and the Catalans themselves wanted to impose themselves even further on the Blues and kill the game once and for all. Preamble aside, and the game itself began very pensively, with Chelsea not wanting to give too much away, especially since Barcelona were already dominating early on the possession, swaying heavily in the Blaugrana's favor. As expected from the visitors, Barcelona were not content with sitting on their lead, and their early endeavors to extend it would eventually yield the first goal of the game, courtesy of a solo drive from Aitana Bonmati to stretch her side's lead further away and give Chelsea nothing to hope for in pulling any semblance of a remontada. And there's honestly no sugarcoating it. Over these 180 minutes, Chelsea were humiliated something fierce this year by Barcelona, who were superior in every which way over the West Londoners, and the rest of this game really showed this, as the defending champions scored not once but twice in the final 5 minutes of the half to rubber stamp their inevitable victory thanks to the first 6 scorers of Pajor and Pina. The second half offered nothing worthwhile, and the crowd at Stamford Bridge felt similarly inclined, as the stadium emptied somewhat, with some fans having seen enough, and you honestly couldn't blame them. There would be a consolation goal scored by Vicky captain, but not before Sama Parajuelo had made it 4 for Barcelona to run out 8-2 winners on aggregate, and deservedly so. Looking at this semi-final encounter in its entirety, there can be no arguments or controversies surrounding Barcelona's victory. They simply wanted it more, and they earned their victory in more ways than one, as they blew Chelsea completely out of the water and made them look like abject amateurs in these two games, which does leave a lot of questions that need addressing from Sonia Bompastor and co. She and the club have not only fallen short again at the semi-final hurdle 3 seasons running, of which this is the first time that Bompastor has failed to do so, whilst the previous two were under Emma Hayes, of course. There is definitely a need to see what is needed to push Chelsea into that next level to make it as regular finalists, because the team is capable. The squad and manager are elite, but there is just something that is still missing in this formula that won't be solved by money. So it will be interesting to see what the Blues can glean from this, and more importantly, if these run-of results will potentially affect their end-of-season form. But all credit to Barcelona, who are looking like the odds-on favorite to make it 3 in a row in the Champions League. And with one spot wrapped up, the final spot up for grabs was contested for in Lyon, where the city's namesake club welcomed Arsenal, with the hosts holding a slender advantage that they were looking to add to, whilst the visitors wanted to make magic again and turn the tie around like they had done in the quarterfinals against Real Madrid. The fireworks on the pitch did not take long to set off, as a corner from Chloe Kelly was deflected into the back of the net by Ender to immediately nullify Lyon's 1-goal advantage and rip the game wide open. And wide open it did become, as the remainder of the first half was inundated with a flurry of counterattacks, corners and throw-ins, with the odd free kick here every now and again, but neither team was giving too much away and looking to punish each other where possible. As the smoke began to clear at the end of the half, it would be Arsenal who would not only stand out unscathed, but would actually be the ones to land yet another blow on Lyon, with a golazo from Mariona Caldente that not even the commentators saw coming. As if the thrills of the first half weren't enough, the second half added more fuel to the fire, as the literal first minute of the second 45 saw Arsenal make it 3, courtesy of Alicia Russo, who benefited from some great pressing from the front that caught Lyon's defense out to give the Gunners firm control of the tie. Lyon's tactics had evidently been found out, as they were being expertly dealt with by Arsenal, whose backline was staunch in their snuffing out of any threat brought on by Lyon, with the likes of Diani and Chawinga being kept quiet on the regular. Arsenal's resolve was resolute, and the Gunners would eventually put a bow on such a frenetic game, with their 4th goal coming from Caitlin Ford. In spite of reducing the deficit by 1 in the last 20 minutes courtesy of Dumonet, Lyon could not muster any courage or resilience, as the team with the most UWCL titles in history was unceremoniously dumped out by resilient Arsenal side, who claimed the remaining spot and will now face Barcelona in the final in Lisbon. And honestly, of all the 16 teams, these two arguably deserve it the most. Barcelona, because of their legacy in the competition, and Arsenal, there's just not enough good things that can be said to describe how transformative the club have been since Renee Slagers took over. She has masterminded the revitalization efforts that have seen her team become elite once again, and the fans are undoubtedly and resoundingly happy with the work that she has done. And the future under Slagers looks exceptionally bright for Arsenal, who dare to dream and go one step further with only 90 minutes, and Barcelona standing between them and some silverware. With the finalists now confirmed, the clock has begun to count down to the final in Lisbon on the 24th of May, where Barcelona will defend their Champions League crown against Arsenal, which is an encounter that will surely not disappoint. But that'll be it for today's video. What were your thoughts on the Champions League semi-final, and who are you backing to go all the way and lift the trophy? Leave your thoughts on this and anything else in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.